Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to talk about your focus and your way you look at patient engagement and as more of a continuum, and it's a different way. It's a little less transactional than our industry can be sometimes. So with that, let me get off the stage and ask you first, Chris, to tell us a little bit about your company and what you guys are up to.
Yeah, no, appreciate the time. So SiteBridge, we launched SiteBridge last year, really trying to create change in the clinical trial delivery space with a focus on how can we reach more patients, create more access for physicians and patients, and do it specifically in places where there are underrepresented, marginalized patient communities, and really being thoughtful about what is needed to do that up and down the research ecosystem to make that happen. And to do that, we are effectively building out a network of community-based practices that we support, providing our trial in a box infrastructure that creates the right support system for both, naive investigators and practices to embed within their practice, as well as experienced investigators to optimize how they can support their research programs. But really being intentional about how do you build connectivity beyond the practice walls, going into the community in different ways. And we do put a hard line between what we call patient recruitment, enrollment, patient engagement, that is really the in-study component, and what we call our community engagement. And we see that community engagement piece really taking place above study, taking place before, during, and after studied specific activities take place, and really putting a focus on both the trusted relationship between the physician and patient, as well as the trusted relationship that people have in the community through different channels and different leaders.
Now, you must really believe in this approach, and I don't mean to sound flip here, but this is a long range view. Capitalism isn't always interested in long range. It wants, here now, let's do this quarter, et cetera. So, talk about the benefits of this, because you're laying, tracks and groundwork, but it'll take some time for it to show benefits, I would think.
It is, and what we've seen in the industry is historically there's a lot of transactional engagement with communities. It's when a study's coming, you go out and there's a lot of good things that have been done, and there's been a lot of things that have been done through charitable foundations, through nonprofits, and things that are helping to educate and raise awareness. And there's great partners out there doing a lot of activity. We're trying to build that into the core of our business model as we go. And I think that is different in terms of how we're approaching the space. But it is something where, trust is not something that happens overnight. And I think that lens is really important to be thinking about how do you get out in front, have the right relationship with different patient communities, be there, start very much by listening, understanding, and trying to show them that A, you care, B, that you're going to be there longer term, and then start building that connectivity. And it's around kind of just general awareness about health and understanding. It's about clinical trials and getting a sense of what that means to a patient community, help ensure that they have that awareness, health literacy of how to potentially engage, so that down the line, whether it's them, whether it's a family member, whether it's a friend, that ultimately they're already on a journey where if that physician recommends a clinical trial as a care option, that they're already more thoughtful and ready to listen and consider that.
Before I let you go, talk about what success is going to look like in the next, I just said capitalism is not, but the next, next couple of years. So from your perspective and for the industry, what will success look like in the next couple of years?
Yeah, and I'll start from the industry lens, because we've spent a little bit of time talking about this as a team. And I think, we're at a place where within the last year, we've gone from FDA guidance to have more diverse patient participation coming out in April, with Dr. Califf really helping to kind of demonstrate leadership in that space, to December now through the omnibus bill that mandates FDA diversity plans for all pivotal studies coming forward. So we're seeing things move from guidance to something that has a little bit more teeth in it to require action. And what I think we're going to start seeing is that translate into earlier and more intentional thought about how to build this into research programs. So I think what we'd like to see is, let's start by kind of hitting the first bar of representation, which is let's meet the census levels. That should be kind of an identifiable target to make sure that, when we think about the different participation, that every group is represented at minimum at the level within the, what the census would say is the makeup across the U.S. And as we go beyond that, we know that specific diseases and therapeutic areas have different disease burden in patient communities and in different populations in different ways. And I think that higher burden is really to start getting a little bit more specific to each one to make sure that we're addressing that disparity and kind of the relative balance in a different way. When we think about that for SiteBridge, ultimately, we're stepping into a space where we see opportunity to grow, both from a geographic coverage and the types of sites we support across the U.S., and from a therapeutic lens. So we're ultimately, over the next 3 to 5 years, going to be building out a network of these community practices and engaged community in spaces, across the entire U.S. and with a kind of really multi-therapeutic lens, but doing it in a way that is, I think, conscious around how do we make sure that we see the right connections and delivery throughout that process.
Fantastic. I love hearing you use words like trust and education and going away from words like transaction. That's exactly the right way to go. I sincerely wish you success and hope you can help us advance diversity in trials. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you today, Chris. Thank you.
Great. Appreciate the time.